Hello, everybody. This is Jonathan Puga, and thank you for attending and giving me your valuable time. This is episode number 5, so I'm so excited, to be interviewing all these top, successful people inside of, home-based business and being an entrepreneur, period. So it's just my privilege and honor to interview the guy today that is, a mentor to me, a business partner. He's really helped me a lot, just with life and business. So it's just incredible time for me to be spending time with him. He's very busy. He has his own company and a lot of things to do. So I just want to thank him for giving me his time and attending the show today. So everybody, let's welcome Bill Ebert.
Thanks, Jonathan. Good to be here. Excited for the interview.
Awesome, awesome. Can't wait to hear some of these questions that I got for you. So let's start with the first one. Why should people listen to Bill Ebert?
Well, I think that's a good question because first of all, I don't think everyone can listen to me or will. I think it's important that for someone to get to the fast track of success, whether it's natural or business or spiritual, that they need to find someone who's documented, who's willing to mentor them, that will take time with human beings to help them get through their path. Now, I'm one of those people. I have some documentation. I love to help people do this thing, and I make my life's passion helping other people do the thing. So if some of the things that I say and the way that I say it can help someone and inspire them, because my personality type's different than some of the other people that I hang out with, and some people just don't like the style by which I communicate. So it's okay that they don't listen to me, but if you want to fast track to success, find somebody, listen to somebody.
Awesome, awesome. That's a very intriguing answer, because a lot of people have said the same thing. Why should people listen to me? Well, maybe they shouldn't, or maybe they won't. So that really gives a great insight. So I love that answer. The next question is, I know you're a great book reader and you like reading books and learning all the time. That's why you're so successful. What are the 3 of your favorite books that you've read and why?
Having a favorite book's like trying to pick your favorite child. My top favorite book is easy, but then after that it gets kind of tricky. I actually have here on my desk my number 1 book, which I just got in UPS today. Another version of it is the Bible. I think it's the greatest business book on the planet. I'm actually studying it in the original Hebrew. You can see my little Hebrew version there. It's fascinating. It's absolutely a magical book. It's just absolutely fascinating. My number 2 book, which is always next to my bedstand, I've probably read it more often than any other book besides the scriptures, is this one right here called Walter Wangerin wrote a book called Orphean Passages. So it's not a book for everybody, but it's absolutely one of my favorite books. The guy's pretty deep. A lot of really good insights. And I think my third would be, C.S. Lewis was asked a question. C.S. Lewis is a prolific writer, or was when he was alive. Wrote lots of books, Lion, Witch, and a Wardrobe. Most people know the movie. When he was asked before he died what was his favorite book that he wrote, he says his favorite book was a book called Perelandra. And that, of all the books that he ever wrote, was one of my favorites. Perelandra is a 3-part series, a science fiction trilogy written by C.S. Lewis, and I loved it from the very first time I read it, and it's my favorite book that he ever read. What's unique about it is most people don't know about it, and it's part of a 3-part series. You really should read all 3 parts. So if anybody's going to go pick them out, go get all 3. You can find them cheap. I mean, $1 a piece because they've been out there for a while. Go to Amazon and look up C.S. Lewis Perelandra. But those are
awesome.
Those are my top 3.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. So so the next question is it's kind of a funny question. I saw your Facebook profile that My Fair Lady is your favorite movie. Why is that?
Well, that is actually it kind of bumped my top movie for a while. I watched it 6 times before I even realized it was a musical. I was so fascinated by the movie. One of the things I noticed is all of my top movies, My Fair Lady, Dead Poets Society, Holland's Opus, Stand and Deliver, The Story of Jaime Escalante, Good Will Hunting, Great movie. Finding Forrester. I noticed that every single one of the movies had the same theme, and it was all about mentorship. It was all about teachers. Um, they were all my favorite movies for years before I realized that there was that common theme in my favorite movies. And what it is about My Fair Lady is here was this girl. She was referred to in the movie as a gutter snipe. She was never going to be anything. She was never going to make anything. She was never going to ever get out of her station. And this guy comes along her path and just teaches her one thing, just one thing. And within 6 months, she's standing before the Queen of England. And the power of a mentor and learning a language, reconnecting with the meaning of words and speaking correctly, transformed this girl from something who would never be anything to can now be anything. It's just such a beautiful story. I know it's really old, and some people may not like it because it is a musical, but it's just stirs the very core of who I am. You know, helping mentor other people and teaching them a language.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, I was very intrigued by that. Was looking forward to that answer, and it was exactly what I wanted to hear. So, of all the trainings that you have in your back office with Success in Minutes, which one is your favorite?
My favorite, my favorite is really hard to say. You know, I think it's IQ, EQ, SQ, where I talk about the difference between your intelligent quota, your spiritual quotient, and your emotional quotient, helping people understand that they can grow up in all three areas. It's one of the most popular ones out there. But then there's 7 habits, and there's different influences. Some of those are pretty good, but I think IQ, EQ has got to be my favorite one. I'd really like to do an extended version, but we keep all of our trainings down, 20, 25 minutes long. But it is one of my favorite ones. If I were actually going to do a live seminar and spend an hour or two with people, I would probably take that one and expand it to a 2-hour session.
Wow, that's one of my favorites too. That I really got some pops when I watched that one for sure. And the Science of Persuasion that you did was very good too. I like that one. So awesome, awesome. So why did you choose to partner up with Robert Hollis?
Well, that's a really good question because we can do anything. Once you learn the secrets of success in business, you can go anywhere. You can do anything. And some people do ask me that question. That's a pretty common question in my life. What is it about Robert Hollis? Because you can go start your own company. You don't need to be the number 2 guy in Robert's company. And I've just never met anybody like Robert Hollis. Just never in all my years of doing business. He's what I define as a true friend and a true leader. We have this thing that we do that we always try to outgive each other. It's the core nature of our personalities is we always try to outgive our family members and our friends. And he's the only guy that I've ever met that had any influence and success that tried to outgive me. And it was just little things that he did. One of the things that really, really got me is when we were in business and we're talking these multi-million-dollar deals and starting companies, and his wife would come into the room or one of his kids would come in the room and they would ask him a question. He says, "I'll call you back," and he'd hang up on me.
Wow.
So we're right in the middle of a business conversation, and his kids are there all the time, and his wife's there all the time. He can talk to them later, but he takes the time with the people in his life to shut down business, and it didn't even necessarily have to be an important question. It was little things like that that made me just fall in love with the guy. I mean, he's just true partnership, true relationship. The guy's the real deal.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So did you ever drop out of high school?
I did drop out of high school. I was I was the terror of my town. The bad kids' parents. The rumor was when I was in 10th grade. The rumor was that I was a mass murderer and you should stay away from me. By the time I was a senior in high school, all the bad kids' parents would tell their kids, "Stay away from that Bill Ebert guy. He's a bad influence." I was terror. I mean, I was an awful kid. Didn't pay attention. Was heavily into drugs. I was the drug dealer in my town. I was just trouble, and school just couldn't put up with me. So I quit. It wasn't too long after that I realized I should probably read some books if I'm going to succeed in life, and I got my own education.
Wow, that's awesome. The education of life. So that's amazing. A lot of people that I've met that are multimillionaires really dropped out of high school. you know. So maybe that's a good thing to do. So, what is your biggest weakness, Bill?
Um, I would think that the thing that I struggle with most is the frustration that goes along with trying to help people. Almost everybody in my profession of training and mentoring and coaching has a similar problem. Is that we have a problem helping people who don't want to participate in their own rescue. People are struggling, and in many cases we have the answer for them, and they just don't want to do what's necessary, and the frustration that goes along with that, and my emotional response to that is probably my biggest weakness. It's the thing that takes me out and gets me mad sometimes. Is I want to help
Hmm.
people so bad, and they don't want to listen. They want to go back to
Right,
They want to go back and watch sitcoms, and
right.
just that. That's probably my greatest weakness and frustration in life.
Okay. So, this is a question that I have, and it's not, anything that you knew I was going to ask you. Um, you created a company and you sold it for $10 million. How did you begin getting into creating companies, becoming an MLM consultant, and this being so successful and starting a company and making so much money in your lifetime of doing this industry? How did you become so successful doing this? How did that company start? I know it's a loaded question, but start where you may.
It was actually in my upbringing, my weakness became my strength. Because of my culture and my upbringing, I was Guido Italian, New Jersey, no education, troublemaker, ex-drug addict. And when I started to go through life, it was really hard for me to work for somebody else. I had a temperament and a personality that wanted more and believed that I was worth more than $2.10 an hour, which was minimum wage back then. And I did everything I possibly could to work for myself. And it was a painful, painful road. I've started over 50 companies in my life, and the majority of them were absolute miserable failures. And it was learning, trial and error, trial and error. I remember one conversation I had with a guy. I told him I wanted to start a company. It was one of my very first ones. And he looked at me and laughed at me. And I know now why he laughed at me. But I thought, that's the worst response you can possibly give me. Why would you laugh at me? He didn't want to take the time to mentor me and teach me, and he knew how much I had to learn to actually be an entrepreneur. Um, but I started to figure it out. Through pain and trial and error and trial and error and reading every book I could possibly get my hands on, I started to figure it out. And then it's like 1 or 2 years, the magic happened, and there was this switch that everything I touched turned to gold. I started a retail shop, and it became the largest sign company in the state of Oklahoma. We had 19 locations, and we were doing tens of thousands of dollars flowing through the business. And then I started a phone card company. We were doing little mini phone cards. The thing blew up, and we were making tens of thousands of dollars a day, not just a week. And then I had a printing company. I had 4 or 5 companies running at the same time. And so
Wow.
to answer your question about the $10 million company, it grew so fast and made so much money that we really we didn't have the infrastructure for it. So a group of investors came in. They said, we'll buy your company for you. I knew that the phone card business was short-lived anyway, and they offered me $10 million. And I said, done deal. Sign up, write up a contract. I'll sign it tomorrow. So it was less than 6 months from the time I started it until the time I sold it.
Wow, that's incredible. That's what people strive for. To create a company and even make $10 million. So that's a great accomplishment, I'd say. So, do you feel that the definition of true success? What would be your actual definition of that? I know people think success is making money, and it's not that. So, give us your Bill Ebert's definition of true success.
Well, I definitely don't think that money is a definition of success. I think that money is the fruit of a successful person, that it's one of the byproducts of being a successful human being. Um, but my definition of success is any person, and this is possible for any human being. This isn't just something that the special people are born with, but any single person who will press past their culture, their upbringing, their brainwashing, and their weaknesses to pursue truth or divinity. I talk a lot about divinity, your calling, your destiny, who you're supposed to be. to press past all of that stuff that life tells you you are, all the things that your weaknesses try to tell you that you are, all the stuff that your culture and your brainwashing and your society tries to tell you and put you in a box. A person who will press past all that to pursue what is true, to ask real questions, and to pursue divine is a successful person. And I think only those people get to hold on to wealth and find true happiness. Because very few rich, you've probably heard it said that very few rich shall enter the kingdom of heaven.
Right.
That there's a way to gain wealth and to gain relationships and to build human beings and to be wealthy and not lose your soul in the process.
Awesome, awesome. Great answer. So some people say you're kind of boastful sometimes. What would you say to those critics?
Well, I actually hear that quite a bit. Not every day, but a lot of people say, "Who do you think you are?" Which goes along with anybody who wants to press past culture, anybody who wants to question the norms of society. You're going to hear, "Who do you think you are?" I mean, you think you're smarter than me because you're going to question culture, you're going to question the religion that I'm in, you're going to question the purposes, you're going to question this organization, you're going to question. And I think it's the questioning heart that finds truth. And when you find truth and you start telling people about it, some people assume that your knowledge, your proclamation of an information or knowledge makes you boastful. And it's really interesting because if I was a 17th degree black belt in 14 different karate classes, I would tell you that without hesitation to teach you karate, and you wouldn't consider it boastful. If I was the greatest race car driver that ever lived and made more money than anybody on the planet, I could tell you that, and you would applaud and celebrate it. If I could lift more weight than anybody on the planet and tell you I'm the strongest man in the world, everybody would applaud and give me a gold medal. But when it moves over into the realm of business success or intelligence, people automatically assume that you're boastful. But in reality, sometimes we have to tell people that we're smart. Sometimes we have to tell people about our success so that they know they should listen to us. I actually don't like doing it. I would much rather hide behind the scenes and share as little as possible about my success because I don't want them following me. I want them to find their own voice. I want them to find their own divinity. And if people start idolatrizing me, trying to make me their idol or their king or their savior, it's a very uncomfortable thing. It happens all the time with mentors. So I try not to do that, but at the same time, there's no way to avoid it. Your intentions are going to be misread and misunderstood, but we have to figure out what humility looks like for us and do the best we can with it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, some people say you might be controversial. Some people, you might have critics. Do you think that anybody really knows the true Bill Ebert? Do they really understand who you are, what you feel, and what's in your head? Does anybody even come close to understanding who you are?
I definitely have an inner circle. I have a core of people, and what's interesting about my inner circle is it's an open door. I mean, anybody can come in. If anybody really wants to know, they can just come in and ask. And I have an open door policy in my life. I'm not afraid of telling people what I believe. I'm also willing to submit my understanding to other people and wrestle through and argue it and discuss with people. So I am controversial because I'm willing to question everything. I'll question every truth on the planet. I'm like the biggest skeptical believer on the planet. I'm a skeptic and a believer at the very same time. So there are a core of people that know my heart, know what I believe, willing to suffer the fire of radical. But it's a small group of people because most people are too busy. They're not interested. It's okay.
Right. Awesome. What was the first lessons you learned when you first got into business and network marketing?
What's really interesting about that question, I didn't learn anything. I didn't learn anything for a long, long time. It's kind of like reading a book backwards and upside down. I didn't have a foundational clue as to where to put some of the things that I was experiencing and learning. So I wasn't learning anything. But I was the most perseverant person on the planet. I was never going to give up on this idea that I could be self-sufficient, this idea that because I saw other people do it. I saw people who were, in my opinion, as a young person, who were less worthy than me, making money and being independent. And I was not going to give up on the idea. So I actually didn't learn anything for a long, long time.
Wow. So when did you start actually getting the pops and learning how to do the business?
17 years.
Wow.
I was doing network marketing for 17 years, not until I made it full-time income, but before I made any money at all. I was 17
Wow.
years without making a single dollar. I never even made it into profit for 17 years.
Oh my gosh.
I
I
didn't give
never knew that.
I didn't give up.
Wow. So your story is very inspirational.
Yeah,
17 years, guys. So
if I
stick with
can
the game.
if I can do it, perseverance is the key.
So what did you do? Did you get like other gigs and jobs to make it, and you just did network marketing part time, or?
Yeah, I would have starved if I did network marketing. Oh, no.
so,
But
so,
yeah,
so
in the early days, I even started in high school before I got any spirituality. And while I was still a troublemaker, I was just a scam artist. So I was dealing drugs on the side and dealing Amway on the other side. You know, I figured it was all the same thing. So uh, it was it
wow,
was
that's
it was a
awesome.
long time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So everybody out there that ever says, "Oh, this doesn't work. Want to give up." Look at Bill Ebert, very successful man, and he never gave up, and he had a will and passion to make it. So that's awesome. Do you have a system, Bill, that creates duplication when you're building teams?
Well, it's a really interesting question because I've gone through multiple systems through life. I know how to turn network marketing into a full-time business for me as a profession. I can go out and in 21 days start almost any network marketing adventure, and in 21 days I proved it over and over again and turn it into a full-time income. But duplication is the tricky part because the things that I did weren't duplicatable. The things that I did, only 1 or 2% of the population were willing to do that. And that's really the reason that we started our current company is we put systematic step-by-step process that whether you want to go slow or you want to go fast, we can teach every single person exactly what to do and exactly how to get there. Because without that, you're going to have what has always been in our profession. You're going to have a 97% failure rate and a 3% success rate, and that just doesn't work for me. I can't be involved in a business that has that bad of a success rate, so I have to do everything I can to change that.
Awesome, awesome. So, do you build more online or offline, or is it a mixture of both? Is that what you would recommend these days, doing both?
I think with our mentoring and what we teach people is it really depends on your personality. The majority of people will not do offline. They'll only do online. It's the greatest gold mine rush on the planet is online marketing. If you figure it out and you'll stick to it, it will build slower, but it will build longer, and you can teach anybody how to do it because people can do it with very little investment. They can do it with very little cost, and you can teach everybody to stick around. And if it takes 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, even though it shouldn't, it costs you almost nothing to do that. With the traditional view, the old school view, doing face-to-face in meetings, because so many people fall off so fast, the big guys are making money, but there's no way to do that. So I think if your personality it can do both, that you should. But you should make sure that you understand the core that your average guy that comes in will have to learn online, or he's not going to stick around.
Great point. So do you think it's a lot easier now with the tools that we have, like Skype and Google Hangouts, to actually do um, more of that belly-to-belly system that offline has?
I think it's not only easier, but it's less painful because the psychology of sales is a really hard thing for almost everybody. I mean, even some very successful salespeople have to struggle. They actually, in the industry, it's called the push. That they wake up every day and they have to motivate themselves with a song or with jumping up and down. They actually have to convince themselves to get into the sales process, and it's hard for most people. So if you're doing something that is naturally contrary to the human condition, you're going to have a really hard time. With social networking, if you can tie it like we do, if you can tie it to um, the natural experience. I use this phrase, I've been using it a lot more lately. If you can make it like a 5-year-old feeding ducks, if you can turn it into an experience it's that much fun and that enjoyable, then everybody can do it. So that's what we need to teach, is the social network of giving and giving and giving and giving, and making fans and making satisfied customers, and showing how fun it is to feed ducks. You know, they're happy to receive it and you're happy to give it, and every once in a while you throw them some real food, and some of them are going to come and some of them aren't. It's just so much easier.
So it's the attitude that you take with your business that makes it enjoyable and successful.
Right.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I know here's a great question that I'm sure this people will get a lot of value from, and I know they wanted to ask you this. If Bill Ebert was dropped off into a new city, you had no connections, you had no friends, and the only way you could survive is with a network marketing company, how would you build your business the fastest to get to full-time income with the knowledge that you know now?
Well, the last time I had to do that, I did it in 21 days, and I was making $1,000 a week. I could probably get there faster now, just because of the mentorship and learning from Robert Hollis. Let's say I've picked my network marketing company, because that's a whole conversation in itself, what to look for in a network marketing company. But if I found something, I would go hit the streets. Brand new city, I would go hit the streets and meet complete strangers, and I would have 10 new recruits a day.
Awesome.
It would be easy. It'd be super easy for me to do, because my personality is a salesman, and that is the fastest way to build the company. And then I would take, when I get to 100 people, I would call them all together and train them and mentor them and start duplicating.
What would you just use a Pete question, just build rapport, and then use the $1 million question?
Yeah, I would just walk up to a complete stranger and shake their hand. Hi, my name's Bill. How you doing? I'm new here. You know, start up any kind of conversation, and then say, hey, do me a favor. And they'll say, what? Say, who do you know that's looking to make some extra money? And they'll say, well, me. I'll say, okay.
Wow, so people really overcomplicate the business is basically what you're saying.
Oh, it's too easy.
It's too easy.
You know,
yeah.
we do a 90-day training program, and everything you need to know is in the first 7 days. The other 80 days are just there to get you motivated and encouraged and stick around long enough to learn what you learned in the first 7.
That's awesome. So what is your take? This is kind of a piggyback question. So, what's your take on all the other trainings that are out there and telling you, people are really not succeeding, and it's really hype. It's really a lot of money flashing, and they're telling you to go out and just get traffic and pay all this stuff and not really build relationships. What do you think of all those systems, and is that another reason why you created Success in Minutes with Robert?
Well, it is, and I think there are some good trainers out there. I think there's certain things you need to look for a good trainer. I had someone tell me the other day, well, why would I go to your training? I got training in my back office. And I said, well, great, let me have a link to it. And so I went to their back office, and this is not the case for every situation, because like I said, there are some really good trainers out there, some really good, dynamic companies, and some good people. But I went into the back office and I looked at their training, and all of their trainers, there was this group of girls that were training how to get Facebook friends. And so I went and looked at their Facebook profile, and neither one of them had more than 400 friends. I was like, so you're going to teach me, you're the training, this is the excellent training, you're going to teach me how to get Facebook friends, and you don't even have 1/10 of what you should have. So, documentation in training is very, very important. And like I said, there's some really, really good guys out there. We recommend Eric Worre and some of the motivational speakers, and there's a lot of people out there that we know have measures of success. You need to find one and turn off your brain for a while and do everything they tell you to do, and you'll get there really fast.
You know what I learned from you and Robert, Bill, and this is really getting into what we're talking about. I learned that you want to collaborate with people. You want to collaborate with successful people, even if they're doing the same thing as you, which most of us are, in network marketing and home-based business, to promote each other. Like you and I and Robert promote Eric Worre, and then Robert also promotes Ray Higdon, and everybody promoting each other as one really helps everybody, and we just allow everybody else to choose who they want to learn from, or really learn from everybody. What is your take on that, and what do you suggest to people out there? Do you suggest that they promote others and just find training like that, and is that how we should be doing it?
I have I spent some time with a network marketing owner. He owns a company, and he wanted to use some of my consulting and some of my training in his back office. And he has a vision to reach the world and empower people. And one of the things that I noticed right away is the words were disingenuous. He was saying it because he knew that was the thing to say, that we want to empower people and we want to have, and that we don't believe in lack and we don't believe in competition. But in reality, he wouldn't promote anybody but himself. He wouldn't promote any company but himself. And when you looked at the internal workings of his company, he had a competitive spirit in there. Everybody was struggling for their position and for their job, and he didn't understand. Now, the guy's not evil. He just doesn't know. He's just echoing what he's heard other people say. So, to answer your question, there's a difference between the words and the fruitfulness, which goes back to why I hooked up with Robert Hollis. I heard in his voice and I saw the way he treated people that he understood that there was no lack, that we're not competitive, and that if we celebrate our profession and we let people go wherever they want to go and let them leave and come back, they're more likely to come back and be your friend and have a relationship that's based on a true relationship instead of holding on to them. We call it white knuckling. You know, you get one person, you white knuckle them until you strangle them to death. They don't feel free. They don't feel like the freedom of choice isn't there, and so the freedom of abundance isn't there, and you're actually hindering by the spirit that you're working under. You're actually hindering prosperity by not having an idea that there's enough for everybody. You know, if we took 1% of the market in our company, we'd have far more money than we ever know what to do with. So let's treat everybody like a king. Let's give everybody a reason to stick around and let everybody go and celebrate the rest of the industry.
Wow, that's a powerful message. Awesome, awesome. What's the most you've ever made in 1 month, Bill?
You're probably referring to network marketing.
Absolutely.
Because in business sales, I made some crazy income. But in network
how about
marketing,
both? How about both? How will you tell us both?
Well, the day that I sat down and they signed the contract for $10 million to take my company, that was the biggest the biggest ever. $10 million was a nice little paycheck. But the most I ever made as a rep was $85,000.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
That's awesome. A good week.
Oh yeah, that was a good month. That was a good month. You know, a lot of people don't even make that in 1 year.
Yeah, you know, those aren't even the things that I celebrate in life. A lot of people look at it and say, you know, I guess that's really good that you should look at what a person's made, so you realize, well, at least if he's done that numerous times, then he can help me get to that level. So that's good. But like we've said before, that's not what we celebrate.
Right. Okay, awesome. Well, congratulations on that. That's still a great accomplishment. If you had to start all over today and could talk to, you know, the younger Bill Ebert, what would you advise yourself?
You know, if I could actually do anything crazy and supernatural, that would be the thing I'd want to do. I would want to go back 25 years and drag the young, dumb, obnoxious Bill Ebert, drag him off into the woods and spend 2 days talking to him. Because I have a lot to say.
Yeah, I know. You're
probably the number one thing that I would tell him is find a mentor. And I think that the difference between the 25-year-old Bill and the 50-year-old Bill is at 25 years old, I didn't believe that there were any that would worry or waste their time on Bill. I actually couldn't find anybody that would spend time talking to me and teaching me. But now that I know, most of the people in high levels of success, once they develop that certain character trait of mentoring and and wanting to have a legacy, they're actually looking for people to mentor. And there's certain character traits that they're looking in, and they'll pull you aside, and they'll do everything they can to make you successful. And I think of everything, that would probably be the number one thing, because at 25 years old, I was doing a lot of the right things, but it took me years to figure out some of the stuff that I would have found out faster if I just tied myself to a mentor. And not just, here's the other thing about mentorship, don't take his first 2 months worth of mentoring and think that's all he got to say. that a lot of people will read his books and spend some time with him and hear him repeat the same thing over and over and over again and think that that's all he has to say. And the only reason he's repeating himself is because he doesn't think you have what he already taught you, or he wouldn't keep repeating himself. That some of the greatest mentors in the world have information behind the information. They have stories behind the stories. They have conversation behind the conversation. And if you'll keep going to them and persistently doing the things that they teach you to do and then asking them what's next, what's next, what's next, you'll be surprised how much information you can get. There's a gold mine in most of these guys.
That's awesome. That's amazing. You know, and it goes to like the people that I've seen, a lot of them, it's taken them a long time, like yourself and you know, like Lori Rubidge and Holton Buggs, all these people. That's just a few. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands that it took them years, like 8, 9, 10, 17 in your case, to make it, to become successful. Why do you think it is? What does it take? Is that why, you know, most people fail in the home business? Because they're not willing to learn from a mentor and keep going and keep going. What would you have to say about that?
Well, I think the number one problem is misinformation. If you were to go to the average college and read their business books, they, by their own admission, are teaching principles and ideas that are 50 years old. That the things that are happening in the world today are different than they did when those books were written and by the people that were successful. The other thing is there's a lot of people who are successful in life that are teaching things that aren't necessarily what got them there, because they're good at what they do, but they're not good at training other people. You know, they actually attribute to a book that they read, and the book's just total ridiculousness, and it wasn't the book at all. It was the actions that they had based on the emotions that they felt because of the book that they